Welcome to Module 6, E-commerce Introduction and Strategy. Okay, so these are our textbook references, and in this week we will be extending our WordPress website to add an e-commerce functionality using WooCommerce, right? So we'll be talking about e-commerce and planning your e-commerce strategy, right? So what is e-commerce? E-commerce is things that you've been seeing that we're doing advertisement on platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and other social media sites such as Pinterest or Instagram, right? To influence consumer behavior, right? You might have used it with gas payments with mobile applications or online ordering of food pickup slash delivery, right? So you might have seen these products being sold on the platforms, right? And they are through the web, hence the electronic commerce. So we do know some of the e-commerce giants. A couple of them would be Amazon, Alibaba, Groupon, eBay, where most of them do provide a platform to sell services and products, right? And it allows sellers to easily put their products there and also allows buyers to easily purchase the products, right? So consumer behavior and e-commerce is there are some similarities for when we only had physical stores, right? And now we are on the online marketplace, right? So given with the online marketplace, we have increased shopping options because now you don't really need to have a big store for the customer to see the available products. They can just browse through online, right? They can easily do a price comparison, right? Using price comparison applications as well. So e-commerce are used for big and small companies, right? It used to be an expensive setup, but nowadays it's fairly very very cheap, I would say, right? That's why even us we can spin up our own e-commerce website with no sweat, right? But before it did require a lot of planning and work, and customers not might not visit your site. Your platform might not translate to purchase, and expertise to build and manage, right? Yep. So why e-commerce? So the brick and mortar stores are limited, right? And when you add the e-commerce component to that, you can basically add a lot of purchases options for your customers, right? And you can basically also handle the logistics where you can add shipping that they can ship directly to your house like Amazon, right? And this is like another thing is if you plan to launch an online store only to sell physical or digital products or services or both. So you can definitely now add the another set of products, which is digital products, right? So benefits, you do get a global audience, but you do have to think about as well getting an instant global audience. You now have to worry how to ship it as well. You do need to connect with other shipping companies. It does reduce overhead costs, right? You don't need the physical store, right? And you don't need the salaries for those person to be there, like cashier and manage the store. But again, you do need to have someone to maintain your e-commerce as well. Next is you can sell physical or digital, as we mentioned, and you can just open it 24/7 for everyone to see. You can create your own store without paying expensive consultants to do it. You can sell to customers on any internet connected mobile device, very, very accessible. You can also improve customer service because they don't need to go to the physical store to give a feedback, right? Setup is quicker and easier than a brick and mortar store, definitely. So affordable e-commerce solution, definitely we can go open source, where the source code is made available for use or modification as users or other developers see fit. So that is free to use, which is WordPress, right? So one of the most popular open source is again WordPress, right? So why do we need to create a e-commerce strategy, right? Because first we need to plan for everything, right? It allows you to basically gather information and what products and services are you trying to sell and what's the best way to present them and sell them to your target audience, right? You just don't want to sell products and don't plan how to market it, right? So it would also help to determine whether your products or services would be a good fit to sell online. There are still certain products which are still better to see physically, right? Um, for example, I like clothes. Clothes people still wanna touch and wear them, and try it on, right? So when we are planning, we can use one of a lot of like the analysis that we learn from our business classes, right? The SWOT analysis, the SMART goal setting, inventory selection, technology selections, payment options, shipping options, customer service, and marketing, right? So those are the stages that we have to plan. So for the SWOT analysis, an example would be, let's say, the strengths. We already know that it has a lower operational cost. Remember that renting a physical store is pretty expensive, right? Weakness, heavy, bulky, and perishable goods are expensive to ship, right? Instead of you maintaining it on your own. Opportunities, right? The customer feedback is now easier, so you can have live chat and customer inquiries, right? Then the threats would be legal and regulatory changes affect the growth. So, because there are also compliance with having an e-commerce platform, so you are restricted with those. Smart goal. Here's an example of a smart goal. Um, you have to, let's say, increase your orders by 30% more than the previous year. You'll need a clear plan to achieve a 30% boost based on the sale experience. You do the following, right? You invest in Google and Facebook for publicity, right? You may add a blog to an online shop to boost the shop's organic positioning. You can create an email marketing campaign, one per week, to share blog posts and new products in the shop, right? Uh, just to remind everyone, the SMART is basically an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time based. So if we break it down, the our SMART sentence, right? The specific one is we do have a quantitative data which is 30%, and measurable we do want to increase by 5%. Attainable, it is realistic. We didn't put like a 50% increase. Relevant, yes, because we do want to boost the orders, right? And to get more profit. Timely, and we did span it for 12 months, right? So now we're going to talk about budgeting. So for budgeting, you do need the following. You need to have a web hosting provider, right? You need someone to do the hosting for you. You also need to buy a domain name and an SSL certificate so that your website would have the HTTPS, which is secured, meaning the data that flows from in transit is secured and encrypted. You can also buy e-commerce themes and also plugins and marketing tools and materials, right? You also need to worry about search engine optimization so that when someone Googles or does an internet search, they can easily find your site, right? Merchant account and fees, credit card fees, so that the payment becomes more seamless. Employee costs, because you have someone to maintain the website. Warehouse space, if applicable, right? If you don't have your own warehouse, you can basically have another company to do that for you. Analytics software to track visitors and their movements on your store, so you know which part of the site that they interact with the most, which makes sense to them most. So for inventory, we already mentioned that it could be physical, services, or digital media. So we can skip this ahead. So here's an example of a timeline or project schedule. So when you ask someone what's the deadline for this project, the answer was always yesterday, because we always underestimate the schedule, right? So you do still want to have a schedule, so that at least you can have a process and a good plan, right? Because without planning, you would end up spending more because you have more unknowns, right? But if you do plan, at least you covered a lot of unknowns as well, right? So do get some low cost tools for creating project scheduling. So you have Microsoft Excel, right? LibreOffice Calc. I think that's for Linux. Google Sheets of G Suite, Zoho.com, Trello, Basecamp, Asana, right? So like the Trello, Asana, those are like being used for teams as well in development teams. So for the summary, we did have a quick check what is a e-commerce and what are some of the components that should be considered, right? So we now have to also take the business side of it, not only the technology side of it, so that we can run a successful e-commerce platform. Let's hop in and check the WordPress plugin called WooCommerce, right? So if you first check in the website, you do want to see what is all about, right? And this one shows you which integration it has for payment. Like there are the popular ones like the Stripe, Square, PayPal, right? It also had MailChimp for your emailing, right? Doing ads. So it makes it a one-stop shop to do all the necessary things that you need. So also like the shipping and also computing for the taxes, right? Okay, so usually you would want to, if you're developing, right, or maybe looking for teams, you can go straight here because we did mention about teams. And let's say your industry is more for uh, digital and audio, right? They also would provide you teams already for that one. Okay, if you want to learn about more of the payment side, you can check this out more, right? So you don't need the hassle of setting it up on your own. Also, you do want to look at the documentation, right? So you get a more thorough guide, right? So checking the version, right? The dependencies. You can keep checking. So this is getting started. After you're done with the installation, you can go ahead and look for more things, right? Such as troubleshooting, right? Other extensions, right? And if you are in development, you definitely can do developing as well. And for developers, they would want to add REST API. Okay, let me see if I remember I was trying this out as well. So I did add it to a portion of the website, and let's see if that would work. No product. This one, I think I added a homepage, right? So you should have a similar thing like this where it gives you like a landing page, right? And some default products, and you can do some add to cart, view products, and check out, right? And just so you know, making this to be a fully functional e-commerce, it does require you to have I think SSN and some government ID so that it is a legit business. Okay, so let me know if you guys have questions. Ping me in MS Teams or email, and let's see you next week.